So I'm going to start this reflection off just by saying that I really love it when I come across a piece of research or a story or somebody's sort of investigation or project that on the outset looks like it has nothing to do with education. And then as you sort of exist in that information and you sort of soak it in a little bit and you take a little bit of time for it to get into your brain, you start to see some of the interconnectedness with schools. And Prochaska's framework kind of started, I was in watching the video. It's funny, I like to make videos, but I don't always like to watch videos. In watching Prochaska's talk, it kind of got in, I kind of understood it. It is funny when I'm taking in information though, I love to read. So the article about making change really kind of spoke to me because I was able to use some digital tools to extract some information, some highlights, and kind of get it into a nice kind of granular chunk that I could kind of then take it in. And when I did that, I started to see very, very specific connections of some of the conversations I've had with my special education students and in the past with some of my alt ed students, and where they kind of got hung up in wanting to, and change habits. It could be anything from wanting to start studying to cessation of smoking to being able to talk more lovingly to their partner. And as I started to read through the steps, and what really was key for me in sort of making this about school is where in the article it started to talk about moving from one stage to another. So it actually included really clear go-tos for me, so that if someone is already in a stage, talking about that next leap sometimes would have been too far. So I like the in-betweener. I like that in-betweener that kind of says, here's what you got to do to kind of shift into that major next mode. And as far as something that I've been working on, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. So this school year, I started a brand new position. So last school year, I was working with students that were on expulsion and suspension. Now, I was really fortunate in that the site where that school was about a 20-minute walk from my house. And between my house and the site, my kids' school was there. So the kids' school was about a 15-minute walk, and then I would keep on walking. I would go right to work. So in doing that, I was getting a lot of sort of very natural outdoors exercise, and it kind of sparked up my brain. It activated some of the deep thinking. I could get reflective. Made a lot of videos as I was walking, and so this past year, I've become a commuter, and I wouldn't have thought that commuting. Now, this is amongst other factors, but commuting has led to some behaviors and some habits that I didn't have when I was walking to school. For instance, as I drive, I'll often be eating my breakfast in the car. I'll be drinking a coffee in the car. Also, as I drive, my posture is not as good as it should be. Also, when I drive, sometimes I have snacks in the car, so it's some of the eating stuff is kind of encircled around the commuting. And my commute, on average, is about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So I think back to last summer, and you have those yearly physicals, and I can remember last summer where I was not only with my physical fitness but with my weight. And at that time, I had a number, and I thought, okay, well, it makes sense for my age. I got the the lifestyle, and I have some other health things that kind of impact that as well. But I remember that number. I remember it so well because I was like, that's not a bad number. I'm okay. I think that's me. It felt like me. So as we come through the school year, and we make it through the Christmas break, I get onto this scale and I'm just like, whoa, like that number's not me. Now, it's not drastic, but it's noticeable. So coming into the new year, I started to try, and part of the trouble that I got into, some of the thinking, and whether or not I'd say I was sort of like in the preparation stage. I don't know if I was there. I don't know if I was in the contemplation stage. I used to be a runner, so I already have a sense of what it means to be in the action stage of running. Now, fatherhood, working as a teacher, just busy life. I've started to let go of some of that. I had an injury, so I kind of stepped off it. I'm not going quite as intense as I used to. But ultimately, what I decided in January when we flipped into the new year is that I'm not going to let the idea of, because I was kind of swept up in that idea that I have to get home in order to get my exercise in. I have a treadmill in the basement. I have some really nice green space around here. Winter doesn't really help out with that, but I thought I had to be home in order to get that exercise done. Now, I'm the one that picks up the kids at the end of the day. My spouse drops the kids off. So I do have to be back in town from that commute to make sure I get them from childcare, but there's always a chunk of time in there where it's a little bit extra, as in my kids really dig staying to school to play with their friends at aftercare. But sometimes I would be there sooner just because I thought I had to get home, I had to get stuff rolling. But there's actually a pocket of about 45 minutes in there that's kind of like a negotiable time. So in January, what I started to do is 4 times a week, as soon as my programming day is done, if I have to make a couple phone calls, I will. But then what I end up doing is 30 minutes of walking through the school. And the great thing about that is that it's completely accessible. The weather doesn't impact it. And it's a fairly even ground, so I'm not, they're hallways. It's a completely even ground, but it's also, it's entirely kind of negotiable. So I have all the space that I need. The school is open until quite late. I can listen to some tunes or listen to a podcast. So I started to walk the school, 30 minutes. I've already been into about 3 weeks of this. What I haven't done is I haven't gone back to the scale. I'm just in that mode of trying to shift the habit a little bit. So if I'm talking about it from the point of view of Prochaska's staging, I think I am in the action stage. One of the challenges that I know right now with the action stage, though, is that I haven't been able to gather a community to sort of support this. Now, if I run at home, my kids will notice, they'll comment on it. So it feels like it's like, hey, look at daddy's doing that thing again to lose, weight or just to run or for healthfulness, right? My spouse would also notice it too. So I'm trying to figure out how to get community support at that action stage so I can kind of shift firmly into maintenance. I've approached a few individuals to ask them if they want to walk with me. There's a few teachers that actually work out at the school, so they don't do the power walking in stairs, but they are working out in we have a workout room that all teachers can use. So I'm trying to decide whether or not I keep up with the walking and trying to gather a few walkers to come with me, or if I sort of shift and I do actually the exercise with the individuals that are going to the gym. So to that end right now, I do believe I'm at the action stage. I'm trying to figure out how to build community so I can sort of shift into maintenance. And as far as getting to, that termination stage, well, I don't have the time that Prochaska suggests. But I think what I'm going to do is the next time I get on the scale I'll wait till the summertime. So I'm just gonna firmly work on the process of getting on my walking gear after school and starting to do my laps around the school. If I put this into a SMART goal frame and I try and make it specific, or I just sort of shape it specifically, I'll say specifically that I'm going to walk 4 days a week for 30 minutes after school, inside the school, before I go and get my kids at the end of the day. And, measurable, well, I'm not going to measure it by my weight, but I will measure it by the time. So 30 minutes, I do the 30 minutes 4 times a day. I've already started it, so my actual timeline is at the beginning of January. But to sort of do the 2 hours of walking on the week, if I don't get the full 30, then that I will do at home on the treadmill. So I'll try and get that accountability for the 30 minutes all the way through. Attainable and realistic, yeah, I mean, part of it is those things kind of move together for me. Realistic is that I have the school, I have my music, I have the equipment, I have the open space to be able to do it. So it's entirely realistic that I can get this done. I can sort of get this habit ingrained in me. And as far as time bound or time measurement, well, my aim for this, because I started in January, is I'm going to take it right up to June. When I get to the end of June, the end of our school year, the reality, and this is where it taps into the realism, is that I no longer have access to the school. I'll have to leave the school. So by that point, also in the summertime, I have my physical again. I'll have some of the information from my doctor to see if I have positively impacted I guess my health or my weight to that extent. And also by that point, I'll have the outdoors again. So my aim with this is to transition from action into maintenance, and then slowly start to consider what termination would look like, because I'm going to be able to have the summer to walk outside. And also, I'll be back there in September, so I'm hoping to just dovetail that activity back into the school again. That's my aim. That's my goal. I really dig the Prochaska piece, and like I said, what I love about it is that it started to speak to an EDU. It started to speak to an EDU frame without ever specifically talking about school, like sort of like the buzzwords in school. And I really appreciate that. Thanks for listening to my reflection. I appreciate your time.